Fire and flood. Two words that should never belong in the same forecast. And yet here we are. Right now, as you watch this, two wildfires are burning out of control across British Columbia, and the conditions that started them are not going anywhere. At the same time, a relentless cold front is pushing flooding rains and violent storms across Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. One side of this country is drowning. The other is on fire. And the system responsible for all of it is not done yet. This is your national forecast for Wednesday. And we have a lot to get through. Let us start in British Columbia, because this is where the story is most urgent and most dangerous right now. For days now, weeks really, British Columbia has been living under a ridge of high pressure that has turned the province into something resembling the inside of an oven. Temperatures through the interior have been climbing into the 30s. Dry air has been baking the soil, the grass, the forests. The moisture that normally keeps this province green and alive through the shoulder season simply never arrived. And the result of all that heat and all that dryness is exactly what fire officials have been dreading. Wildfire season has arrived early, and it has arrived angry. As of this broadcast, 2 wildfires are confirmed out of control across British Columbia. 2. And they are not isolated to one corner of the province. They are scattered, which tells you something important about how widespread the dry and dangerous conditions have become. The fire danger rating across British Columbia right now ranges from high to very high, with some areas sitting at the most serious rating of all, extreme. That is not a word meteorologists and fire officials use casually. Extreme means the landscape is primed to burn. It means a single spark, a carelessly discarded cigarette, a campfire that was not fully extinguished, can become something catastrophic within minutes. Fire bans are already in place across large portions of the province. Watering bans have been issued in many communities through the interior, with some areas now restricted to watering lawns and gardens on weekends only. The situation is serious and it is tightening. And here is what makes Wednesday particularly worrying for British Columbia. The heat is not the only problem today. Wednesday brings something additional, something that fire officials have been watching and dreading in equal measure. The ridge of high pressure that has dominated the western part of the country is still very much in place. Temperatures across the BC interior will sit in the mid to upper 20s today, slightly cooler than the past couple of days but still far above what should be normal for this time of year. The dryness persists. The fire danger persists. But layered on top of all of that today is a new and troubling ingredient. Atmospheric instability. A weak disturbance is going to track across the south of the province through the afternoon, and it is going to interact with all of that heat and dry air in a way that sparks something. Not heavy rainfall. Not the kind of soaking rain that firefighters need and that the province is desperate for. No. What this disturbance is going to produce is something far more threatening in conditions like these. Lightning. Isolated thunderstorms are expected to develop across the southern interior and into western Alberta through the afternoon and evening. And when those storms fire up, they are going to produce lightning over a landscape that is already primed to ignite. This is what fire meteorologists call dry lightning. Thunderstorms that generate lightning strikes but produce little to no rainfall at the surface. The rain that falls from the clouds evaporates before it ever reaches the ground. So you get all of the ignition and none of the suppression. In fire weather, there are few more dangerous combinations. We are not talking about widespread severe thunderstorms today. These will be relatively isolated, relatively brief. But it only takes one strike. It only takes one bolt of lightning hitting one patch of dry timber in one remote valley to start a fire that takes weeks to contain. And right now, British Columbia has dozens of patches like that, hundreds of them, spread across the entire province. Fire crews are on alert. Air tankers are on standby. And the message from fire officials and from this broadcast is simple and unambiguous. If you are in British Columbia today, you are in a fire province. Respect every ban that is in place. Do not light fires. Do not create sparks. Do not take risks you would not normally take. The forest is not the same forest it was a month ago. It is drier, more volatile, and more dangerous than it looks. And the storms rolling through this afternoon are going to test it. As for the rest of the week across British Columbia and Alberta, Thursday and Friday bring a gradual quieting of the thunderstorm threat. But the heat lingers and the dryness lingers with it. By Friday, some increasing cloud cover will push across the central and northern coast as that upper ridge begins to weaken slightly. Some rainfall will move across the coast Friday evening and overnight. But across the interior where it is needed most, the relief remains elusive. The forecast going into next week does hint at a more significant pattern change, a shift to what meteorologists call a zonal flow, which could finally bring the province the widespread rainfall it has been waiting for. But next week is next week. Today and the next 48 hours remain dangerous. Now we cross the Rockies and move east onto the prairies, where the story shifts but the unsettled theme continues. The eastern prairies, and Manitoba in particular, are stuck in the grip of a large upper-level low-pressure system that has been sitting over the region like an uninvited guest that refuses to leave. Cloud cover is going to blanket Manitoba and northwestern Ontario through Wednesday. Winds will be breezy on and off throughout the day. And yes, there will be flurries. Snow. In the middle of May. If that sounds unreasonable, take it up with the upper-level low, because it is not listening to complaints. Wednesday morning across Manitoba will bring some of those flurries, particularly across the central and northeastern sections of the province. The afternoon will see conditions begin to dry out gradually, and by the time we push into Wednesday night and Thursday morning, another round of flurries is possible across northwestern Ontario before that moisture eventually switches over to showers. Manitoba, you will start to see clearing develop as we get through Thursday. The worst of it is behind you, but Wednesday is going to test your patience. Saskatchewan sits in an interesting position this week, caught between two competing influences. To the west, that upper ridge is still exerting some control, and as a result Saskatchewan is going to see quite a bit of sunshine over the coming days. But the cloud and unsettled conditions from the east are always threatening to creep in. A small pulse of showers is expected to push into parts of Saskatchewan on Friday afternoon before things quiet down again into the weekend. Overall, not a terrible stretch for the province, but not the kind of clean warm spring week anyone was hoping for. Now we head east to where the cold front is continuing to do its work, pushing moisture and rainfall across Ontario and into Atlantic Canada. The Great Lakes region wakes up Wednesday to lingering showers from the overnight activity. That rainfall will clear from the lower Great Lakes through the morning, lifting up the St. Lawrence and tracking toward New Brunswick. The GTA is going to be left in that awkward in-between zone through the day, similar to where it has been sitting for the past couple of days. A few showers are possible through the afternoon, but the most intense activity has already moved east. By Thursday morning the region is looking at generally quieter conditions, though there will be another opportunity for showers to lift in late Friday afternoon and especially into the evening. Temperatures across the Great Lakes are settling back towards seasonal norms after a brief period of above normal readings. So while it is not going to be a dramatic cold snap, that warmth that teased you earlier in the week is going to fade. Dress in layers if you are heading out Wednesday morning. And then there is Atlantic Canada, where this cold front is still very much an active and developing story. Wednesday is setting up to be a significant weather day across New Brunswick in particular. That system that hammered southern Quebec with 30 to 50 millimeters of rain on Tuesday is now tracking eastward, and as it does, it is going to set up shop across northern New Brunswick and along the St. Lawrence, lifting up toward Labrador. That scenario is going to define Wednesday morning across the region. Rain, locally heavy at times, and strong winds, particularly those onshore winds along coastal Nova Scotia. Those gusts are going to be noticeable and sustained. If you are near the coast, especially across Nova Scotia, expect a rough start to your Wednesday. Through the morning there will not be significant movement in that system. It essentially parks itself and wrings out its remaining moisture over the region. And then as we head into Thursday morning, the next act begins. Heavier rain builds into Nova Scotia, including the Halifax Regional Municipality. This is not a glancing blow. This is a direct hit for HRM on Thursday morning. Rainfall totals are going to be significant across Nova Scotia through the day, and the rain will continue to push eastward, building into Newfoundland through Thursday and into Friday. It will weaken just a touch as it reaches the island, but Newfoundland is still looking at a wet Friday. By Friday across the rest of the Maritimes, showers will linger. Not the kind of heavy organized rainfall that Nova Scotia sees Thursday, but persistent enough to be a nuisance. If you have outdoor plans in the Maritimes this week, Thursday and Friday are not your days. Now a quick look at the broader pattern, because it matters for your planning going into next week. The setup that has been driving all of this weather, The ridge of high pressure anchored over western Canada and the upper-level trough dragging cold and unsettled conditions across the east, that setup is going to persist for another couple of days. It is a stubborn and well-established pattern, and it is not going to break down overnight. But there are signs, hints in the longer-range models, that as we move into next week a more zonal flow will emerge. When that happens, the extreme heat and dryness in British Columbia will finally start to ease. The relentless cold and unsettled weather across the east will begin to moderate. The country, in other words, will start to find some balance again. But that is next week. And right now, today, Wednesday, this country is split down the middle. Fire and drought on one side. Cold fronts and flooding rain on the other. 2 wildfires burning out of control in British Columbia under the most dangerous fire conditions of the year so far. Flooding risk persisting across Atlantic Canada as that cold front pushes east. Snow and flurries across northern Ontario and Manitoba while the calendar insists it is spring. This is Canadian weather at its most dramatic. At its most unpredictable. At its most serious.